Randall Cobb has decided to move on with his career. Randall Cobb, for those that don't know, a little bit younger, was a standout player at Alcoa High School. They've got an airport. It's right next to Knoxville. And Knoxville happens to be the place where the University of Tennessee is. But instead of playing football at the University of Tennessee, Randall Cobb had a superstar career at the University of Kentucky and then went on to a standout career in the NFL. It goes down as one of the two biggest misses, probably the second biggest miss behind Patrick Willis, the linebacker that Tennessee decided not to take. Now, Caleb, I can give you some insight into this recruitment, maybe more than you want to know. Would you like to know how Tennessee missed out on Randall Cobb?
I've always wanted to know, and I want your insight on it because to this day, I think this is one of the biggest indictments of a coaching staff of all time was to miss out on him.
Okay, I'll tell you. One, there was one coach on the staff that was 100% sold on Randall Cobb. That was Trooper Taylor. 100% sold from the get. Wanted to offer him months before. There were 3 or 4 others that were 50-50. Ultimately, the decision makers, those were the Phillip Fulmers of the world, decided he wasn't good enough. Then the class didn't completely fill out the way that you thought it would. So you go to Randall Cobb in late December, January-ish. Okay, you're undergoing a coordinator coaching change. Who is a candidate to be that coach, that new coordinator? Who's the candidate, Caleb?
Is this? Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, Trooper Taylor with David Cutcliffe leaving. Yes.
So somebody maybe got a text while they were covering a recruiting all-star event that Trooper Taylor is going to Oklahoma State. That's when the Randall Cobb to Tennessee resurrection, which is what it would have had to be, would have occurred. And it wasn't going to occur once Trooper was gone. But I will tell you this. I asked Trooper, I said, would you have gotten him? He goes, if I'd have stayed? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, yeah. Definitely got him. No question.
Wow. And you know what's crazy? I fully believe him. And I also fully believe...
Who did they hire in place?
Dave Clawson, which got Fulmer fired. Not that Clawson, and I have no doubt that Dave Clawson knows offense well. There were dynamics with what Dave Clawson does that did not fit with what Phillip Fulmer likes to do. And it was a catastrophe. I wanted Trooper Taylor promoted to offensive coordinator back in that time. He was Cutcliffe's understudy. Everything I had read, and Dave, you were closer to the program, but I had read that David Cutcliffe had basically taken Trooper Taylor under his wing, right? To kind of make him the OC in waiting.
Yes. No, totally agree. When Tennessee was looking for a coach and they called David Cutcliffe, help me. It wouldn't have been Pruitt, the one before that.
Oh, you mean between Fulmer after Kiffin left? Between Kiffin and Dooley?
Yes. Okay, yes. I know for a fact that Trooper Taylor was one of the very first coaches called when Tennessee expressed interest in David Cutcliffe to come back to the program and be the head coach. Trooper Taylor, I believe, would have been the offensive coordinator. I know he would have been on the staff. That staff was being assembled, and then Mike Hamilton lost all of his power. I'm not saying it would have been David Cutcliffe, but it very well could have been David Cutcliffe, Caleb.
Which would have been perfect for Tennessee. David Cutcliffe as head coach, Trooper as offense coordinator. David Cutcliffe, you don't know, he may not have been there that long. Look, I have to say this. Tennessee's mishandled. This is kind of a sad story because you got to look back at Trooper Taylor. One of the greatest rising young stars in college football coaching in the mid-2000s, right? One of the greatest rising young stars. He went to Tennessee as a running backs coach in 2004 and coached 2,000 yards rushers. He then moves to receivers coach in 2006, and Robert Meacham sets the all-time receiving record at Tennessee. He's clearly on the up and up. Tennessee doesn't do right by him, which basically, unfortunately, set his career back so far because had they done right by him, he could have been a head coach by this point, and he was very qualified. And it didn't just undercut his career. It got Phillip Fulmer fired because had Trooper Taylor been promoted, it could have worked. You're right. Randall Cobb at Tennessee. I mean, there are a lot of players that Trooper Taylor was able to scout. And from what I understand, he knew it better than most. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, He had the same problem at Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy flat out lied to him and told him he'd call plays, and then he couldn't, and never listened to him with evaluating talent whatsoever. And
Troop really regretted not being in the SEC anymore. And so what happened to Troop? Troop went to Arkansas State. Now, there were some family reasons, and Troop, to give you some background, deeply religious, never smoked a cigarette, never had a drink of alcohol, never done any drugs. So, as far as integrity, he's right up there with any coach I've covered. So when he says this, I believe it. He went to Arkansas State so he could coach his son, who was involved in a very serious issue that I don't want to get into, and was also there while his wife pursued her, I believe, doctorate. So the take was he has the opportunity for some family time while still being a coach. Now, was that because there wasn't a job out there, or he was viewed as not as hot of a commodity as he was in the time you're referring to? Probably a little bit of both. I highly doubt if some school would have come calling and so you've got to be the head coach. Will you leave Arkansas State? No, my wife has a 10 o'clock physiology class. I mean, you're not going to stay there at Arkansas State for the right job in college coaching. I don't think. I respect Trooper a lot, and maybe that would be his stance, but I don't think most people would do that.
So what happens, Dave, if Trooper Taylor's promoted to offensive coordinator and Tennessee lands Randall Cobb? Do they put him at quarterback?
No. They were not going to put him at quarterback. They were going to put him at receiver. What happens at Tennessee, though, is there's probably 2 or 3 more guys that I can't remember that flipped because Trooper Taylor left. There was one year in which he got out of the 25. Well, there were 25 commitments, 25 signees, and somebody in Tennessee's recruiting office, I said, this is antiquated, but used to say this guy recruited this guy. Now it's more of a collective team effort. But back then you attributed it to one guy. And I said, how many was Trooper involved in? He goes, well, he's this guy. And we're getting up to like 10 or 12. He goes, Dave, basically all of them.
Well, what about this then? Because I'm trying to think of duos. Terrell Pryor. Do you think Tennessee keeps him if Trooper's promoted?
I hadn't even thought of that.
Because I'm thinking of this. Okay, Crompton's there 2008, 2009. Fulmer got to stay above water. But, Dave, what if Fulmer can stay at Tennessee into 2010 and you have Terrell Pryor thrown to Randall Cobb in the SEC? And Trooper Taylor's the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, you are. And for on the message board, I think I'll let the guys that get paid to pick the players try to do just that. Well, the issue is not whether or not they wanted Randall Cobb. It's whether or not they waited too long and tried to string him out. That's the issue. And that was bad evaluation from the get. You shouldn't. If he's that good a player, you shouldn't miss on him that bad early in the process. I understand you can get better as a senior, but that's missing pretty bad for a guy to go on and have, a 10-year NFL career?
Yeah, and also the idea that they're paid to pick the players, well, then they need to do a good job picking the players because they're paid to pick them. I mean, I'm not going to say, this is the thing I always say with coaches, and I hear this all the time. They're paid to make these decisions. Let them make the decision. No, if they're paid to make the decisions, then they should be held accountable when they make bad decisions, right? I mean, that's how life works. I mean, if you or I make bad decisions for this YouTube company and this company that we're starting, this media company, the conglomerate we're trying to build, we pay for it. We suffer. That's how life works. And so,
you mean you've been made fun of on the YouTube message board before?
And exactly. And do you hear me come in and say, let the guy who's paid to pick the topics pick the topics? No, I feed off the message board and topics you guys want. The guy who picks the players, and Fulmer picked wrong. He missed on Patrick Willis. He missed on Randall Cobb. He did get screwed over with Michael Lohr. I will say that Michael Lohr should have been at Tennessee. But there were just so many things that went wrong. He made the wrong hire for an offensive coordinator during that time. And yes, he cost himself an opportunity to have Terrell Pryor throwing the ball to Randall Cobb. If not Terrell Pryor, Dave, do you remember this? Taj Boyd was committed to Tennessee at one point before Lane Kiffin sent him out the door. And Bryce Petty was committed to Tennessee at one point before Lane Kiffin sent him out the door. Cam Newton was interested in Tennessee before Lane Kiffin took over as head coach and said, I'm not interested in him. And so there's 1,000 different ways this could have gone. You could have had one of those quarterbacks. None of them were like outside of Cam Newton. None of them were NFL stars, but they were all stars in college. And you could have one of them throwing the ball to Randall Cobb, who was a superstar receiver in the NFL. And I just have to say that not trusting Trooper Taylor on that was a gigantic, historic level screw up, because Randall Cobb should have been in. Randall Cobb never should have left Knoxville. Alcoa never should have been let out of East Tennessee.
Nope, totally agree with that. We are awaiting the predicted order of finish from the SEC. Where do you think Tennessee will be predicted? I started to say in the East, Caleb, but we don't do that anymore. So where do you think Tennessee will fall once those predictions come out? And then I want to get into Tennessee and who you think will make the All-SEC team.
First of all, I want to say apologize to T-Bag Gumps. Didn't realize you were talking to a Georgia fan. We just kind of saw that. We love everybody on our message board. We do.
Well, this thing happens fast. Sorry about that, Gumps. So did want to interact with you, but we're going back and forth a little bit. All right.
Yes. Okay. So I think Tennessee ends up picked 6th in the SEC. I think they're going to pick Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, and Oklahoma ahead of them. Oh, Ole Miss. They're picked 7th. They're going to be picked 7th. And Ole Miss. So Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma will all be picked ahead of Tennessee in SEC media days. Watch. And I think they might only have like 3 all-SEC players.
By the way, you'll have to get it in the headline because I forgot to say that Randall Cobb will join the SEC network. So congratulations to him.